So it's 7:01. I'm going to call the Town Government Study Committee meeting to order. It is a virtual meeting and it is being recorded. Right now in attendance, we have Harriet Davis, Kirsten Alexander, Deirdre Parati, Mike Lucy, Roger Smurridge, and myself, Pat Waddell, for voting members. We are missing Dave Anderson right now, but we do expect him shortly. We'll open, this is a public forum, so there will be plenty of time for public to speak, but just as a matter of course, we'll open it up to public comment, as is our standard. Anyone wishing to speak, raise your hand, put your name in the chat. Otherwise, we will have plenty of time to speak in the forum. Seeing no one, we'll move on. I apologize. I did not send the minutes until just minutes ago. I had them several days ago and just forgot to send them. I apologize, but we'll hold those minutes until our next meeting and approve them then. So I entertain a motion to open the public forum.
So moved.
And do we have a second? Excellent. Everything will be a roll call vote. Harriet?
Yes.
Kirsten?
Yes.
Deirdre?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
And Pat Waddell, yes as well. So we will open the public forum, and I just want to thank everyone for attending. We're looking forward to gathering as much input from the citizens as we can. I would like to introduce the members of the committee. We have Kirsten Alexander, Dave Anderson, who's not in attendance yet, Harriet Davis, Mike Lucy,
Hey.
Deirdre Parati, who is our clerk, Roger Smurridge, who is our now town moderator, and will be our moderator this evening. Ryan Ferrara, our town administrator, and Paul Weaver, who also is not here yet. Ryan and Paul are ex officio members, so non-voting. And Dave Anderson just arrived, so letting him in. Welcome, Dave. And we also have Catherine Tinsley is our recording secretary, and we thank her very much for taking our minutes. We have several lawyers on the committee, and our minutes fly through with no real revisions, which is amazing. And that's a testament to her. My name is Patrick Waddell. I chair this committee, and I just would like to give a brief history of the committee. It came to life as a result of a citizen's petition, which I filed with the town. And the citizen's petition was to change one word in our bylaws. The change was a sentence from the bylaws, and it is, the executive powers of the town of Wenham shall be vested in a 5-member board of selectmen elected for 3-year rotating terms. And the only change was the 5-member was initially, it is right now a 3-member. And that was the only change. I gathered 12 signatures that were certified by the town clerk, and it was submitted for a warrant article in the annual town meeting in 2020. Because of COVID, the town went to only financial issues in the annual town meeting 2020, and it was requested that this be pushed to a special town meeting, which it was on October 17th, 2020. The petition was found not to be in good order. It was not a non-actionable warrant article, but it proceeded as a straw vote. And that was because this has to go through a petition to the General Assembly, the Massachusetts Legislature, to approve the move from 3 to 5. So I presented to town meeting, just an indication of interest to study moving from 3 to 5 on the select board, 3 to 5 members. The vote was overwhelmingly in favor of initiating the study. It was 118 for, 26 against, and 3 abstentions. Our committee was formed by the then Board of Selectmen on January 19th, 2021, and we held our first meeting on February 18th in 2021. When we kicked off the committee, we were meeting weekly, and we met weekly through the beginning, through March into early April. When we were formed, we were to have a report to the select board before annual town meeting 2021, back this May. It became evident very early on that we did not feel comfortable rushing through a report and coming up with a recommendation that quickly. And we requested that the committee be extended and that we would then be able to present a report and recommendation to annual town meeting 2022. We then switched to bi-weekly meetings in which we determined what groups we wanted to talk to, which people to interview, the questions that we would ask, depending on why we were questioning them, why we were getting their opinions. And it was former Board of Selectmen, former town administrators, select people from other towns, boards and committees in Wenham. And then we also compose surveys. We have 2 surveys, one of our board and committee members in town, and we have a public survey that is available now, and I wish everyone would go and fill it out. We've got 33 responses so far. We got 65 responses to the boards and committees. I would love to see that number reach 100 for the public. And that survey will close at the end of this month, 10/31. We have not started deliberations. Deliberations will start at our next meeting, November 4th. So we have purposefully not started the deliberation portion of our charge. We're, by our timeline, we're to have a draft report done by early December. So this is where timing gets tight. After which we'll have another public forum in January 2022 to present our findings and recommendation to the town. I would say we have put all of our documents online and made them very accessible. We want to be as open and transparent as possible. So if you go to the town website, I'm just going to show you where this is. Let me see if I can share my screen. Agenda.
Do you have the function showing? Yeah,
I
there you
do.
go. Okay.
You can see that. So town website. Town government. Town Government Study Committee. There's a link to our survey here. And if you go to research documents folder, you can see all the work we've done to date. The actual citizens petition, the vote at town meeting, our preliminary report, our roadmap, which is the timeline that we're working under. And then you go into the research and everything we've done, drafts, prior versions. This is for our public forum, questions, responses, and everything that we have done. At this point, again, I will, please go to the survey, please take the survey. The more data we get, the more complete analysis that we can do. At this point, I would like to turn over to Deirdre Parati. Deirdre, do you want control of the screen or?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share.
Okay, let me stop sharing here.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Give me 1 second. Okay, just to echo Patrick, thank you to everyone for being here with us this evening. We appreciate you taking the time to hear us out. I'm just going to do a brief presentation to bring you up to date as to where we are and to show you a bit of what we've done so far and a bit of where we're going. So as Patrick mentioned, these are our current committee members. Our charge to the committee is quite straightforward. It's simply, will the town of Wenham be better served by a 3-person or a 5-person select board? With some specifics about who we should speak to and what types of information we should consult. So as Patrick mentioned, so far since beginning in February, we started with creating our research instruments, which included our questionnaires for our key interviews and our surveys for our large constituent groups. We then proceeded into our data collection phase, which was conducting our key informant interviews. And these were important stakeholders with knowledge and history with the town, including current and former Wenham Select Board members and town administrators, and also comparison communities that we identified who have gone through the transition from 3 members to 5 members to understand their experiences. We somewhat concurrently then began disseminating our surveys, the first of which was to our town board and committee members and to our town employees. And then, as Patrick mentioned, the one that is currently open for response, which we would be happy for everyone to respond to, is for Wenham residents. So I'm going to start by just providing some context. We looked at the numbers in terms of what select boards look like across Massachusetts. So here we can see our Massachusetts local government. There are currently 351 municipalities in the state of Massachusetts. 59 of those are city form of government, and they are led by city mayors or managers. The other 291 are town form of government, and as you can see, are pretty evenly split between 5-member select boards and 3-member select boards, with one town, that is Wakefield, having actually a 7-member select board. Then if we stratify that data by population size of the town, and we've done that with 2,500 person increments, you can see that as the size of the town increases, there tend to be many more 5-member select boards, with the 3-member select boards tending to concentrate around smaller towns. Wenham is located in the middle strata, where you can see it's fairly evenly split between 5-member select boards and 3-member select boards. Then if we go one step further, looking at geographically just with Essex County, and that is excluding the 10 Essex County municipalities that have a city structure, there are 18 towns which are listed out here that have 5-member select boards, and 6 towns, including Essex, Lynn, Merrimack, Nahant, Wenham, and West Newbury, that are at 3-member select boards. So that's to give you a bit of context as to what it looks like across the state. Now I'm going to show you briefly just some preliminary research results, and this is from our key informant interview responses that, as Patrick and I mentioned, are the town administrators, select board members. Okay, so here are the top pros and cons that, in our comparison communities, that's what I forgot to say. So these are the top pros and cons that emerged from those interviews. And you can see that there was more diversity of responses in terms of the pros that were mentioned, where the cons tended to concentrate around a few core issues. The top ones that emerged that were mentioned most frequently were, for the pros, more dilution of power and mitigating the ill effects of one member, and the perception that it's easier to have conversation among two people without violating the open meeting law. The cons, the most frequently mentioned, were that they were longer, it would result in longer meetings and make decision-making more challenging, more difficult to arrive at consensus. And then if we look at some of the responses to our survey, and this is to two specific questions in particular, and this was again sent out to our board and committee members and our town employees. And the question was very straightforward, essentially our charge: do you think Wenham would be better served by a 3 or 5 member select board? We sent it out to a total of 150 people, received 64 responses for a response rate of about 43%. And as you can see here, we had 59% responding that they believe 5 members would serve us better, and 31% believing 3 members would serve us better, or essentially no change to the size of the board. With that question, the next question was asked, just an open-ended question asking people if they would like to elaborate on their response. And we sort of see similar patterns here, where more diversity of response around the pros, and cons sort of centered around some core issues. Here, the top responses were that it would increase, provide more diverse representation and more perspectives on the board with 5 members, and that simply there would be more people to do the work. And on the cons, the idea that 3 is sufficient for a small town, a town of our size, and that 3 has been working well for the town's history, and sort of the "it's not broken, so don't try to fix it" perspective. And then, as Patrick mentioned, this is our roadmap to completion, where tonight we are at our public information session. We then will proceed with completing our analysis and move directly into our deliberations. We'll be taking a vote to see where the committee stands on our recommendation, with potentially there being a majority and a minority opinion represented, which then we will proceed into our report writing with those perspectives represented. We will conduct at least one, if not more, public information sessions to share our draft report and our recommendation to the select board, after which we'll incorporate that feedback, finalize the report for submission to the select board, and that's where the committee work ends. And it is then in the hands of the select board to proceed with their deliberations on our report and recommendations, with potentially a warrant article written and potentially a vote at annual town meeting. If all of that occurs and it is in the affirmative, then it would proceed into the legislative process, as Patrick mentioned. So that's where we are so far. And now we would like to hear from you, and we are very eager to hear your thoughts, your feedback on what we've done so far, our preliminary results, and just in general on the question of expanding the town of Wenham Select Board. So thank you very much for your attention.
And at this point, we would love to hear from members of the public. It fairly informal. If you'd like to share your opinions or questions or things that we should be thinking about, please raise your hand, name in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Then we could also go through some questions that would, may spur some conversation. Turn that over to our moderator, Mr. Smurge.
Thanks, Patrick. Good evening, everyone. So, I want to just echo what Deirdre just said, and if anyone has any general thoughts or questions based on the presentation or what they've heard already tonight, feel free to raise your hand and start the process. But I guess where we could start in terms of focus discussion is, what do people see as the biggest benefits of expanding Wenham Select Board to 5 members? And on the flip side, are there any particular drawbacks in keeping the Select Board at 3? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? All right, what if we phrase it differently? What's the flip side? What do you see? What do people see as the biggest benefits of keeping the Select Board at 3 members, with any drawbacks to expansion of the Select Board? Do people have questions or thoughts on that? I see a couple of people, their mouth moving, but they're still muted. If anyone wants to speak, Ryan, can we just open up the floor? I think we've got enough people here to control the traffic for the time being.
So do you want me to just unmute everybody?
Yeah.
So I think I can mute all, but I don't know if I can unmute everybody.
But it's set
I
so
can
that
ask all to unmute. Yeah.
it's set so that individual participants can unmute themselves.
Correct. Yeah. So I just asked all to unmute then.
All right. If anyone who was muted before wants to jump in, share any thoughts or questions.
Might be seriously interested.
Right. What about this question? Does anyone attending tonight view this issue of potential expansion of the Select Board as one that arose from particular recent circumstances, or on the other side as a long-standing issue that needs to be addressed?
Oh, you can't hear me?
Well,
Now we
Yeah,
can.
Jeremy.
Jeremy, were you looking to speak?
Yeah, I was trying to speak.
Yeah,
Well,
we can hear you now.
Okay. I mean, I
Go
think
ahead.
we've seen in the incidents in the board in the last couple of years, the design flaws in having a 3-person board. Because, if unfortunate incidents come up, the board can't govern. So having a deeper bench means more people can play and keep us functional in emergencies.
And we did have a situation where we had to go to the rule of necessity, which is you don't want to invoke the rule of necessity where someone may have to vote on an issue, but that definitely was an issue for us, and we did go down to the 1 Select Board member, which I do believe we weathered quite well given the circumstances.
Are there any other thoughts on this question about whether this is a product of recent circumstances such as the one that was just mentioned, or something that maybe has been simmering under the surface for a long time but needs to be addressed? All right, hearing no further comments on that question. if the people in attendance tonight voted in favor of moving forward with the study at the October 2020 special town meeting, we'd like to know whether that vote was driven by a desire to have the issue studied, or was it driven by a desire to actually see the change made and the select board expanded?
If no one else is going to speak, I would like to see it expand.
And Jeremy, do you mind my asking? You're not obligated to answer this, but if you voted at the town meeting on this question, was your vote to see the change occur, or was it to see what the results of a study would be?
It was to see the change occur.
Does anyone else want to chime in on this question? Okay, hearing no one, I'm gonna move on to the next question. Do the people in attendance tonight think that Wenham would have a sufficient number of candidates to fill 5 seats on the select board? Jeremy, thumbs up. Anyone else want to share thoughts or questions on this topic?
If I may, I'm trying to stay out of this conversation because obviously I have a little skin in the game. But your question, Roger, your last question, I think, what was, if you can repeat that.
Absolutely, Catherine. The last question was whether people think that Wenham would have sufficient number of candidates to fill 5 seats. In other words, is the interest there on the participation end of things?
So I guess I will comment on that one. I think that initially, if it is this is approved and initially it's new, I think it will be a little difficult to go from 3 to 5. But if it's approved after some few years probably of 5 people being on the board, I think it would become easier and easier to maintain the 5 and to find candidates, because it will become the new norm. So I guess I'll just add that from a procedural point of view.
No, it's a good, Catherine, thank you. And this next question ties in, and Catherine, it's not going to apply to you since you are already a member of the select board. But would people themselves be more inclined to run for select board if it were expanded to 5 members? Another way of phrasing that is, there's something about the 3-member structure that gives you pause right now as a member of the community in running for that position that might go away if there's 5 seats.
Yeah, I would say that citizen government is important. Government governed by the citizens. And I'm a busy professional. I, work for a tech company, and I sit on one of the committees in Wenham, and I can do that because it's distributed. And I could more easily serve the town in a 5-person select committee than a 3, because if there were only 3, my duties would be too great to bear. And having it distributed among 5 people assuming that the town puts its faith in me in a hypothetical situation to be on the select board, would be more able to do it, because the duties would be distributed among more people, and there'd be more of a possibility to have professionals on the board, or having younger people on the board, university students on the board. I think it opens up our democracy to more people if the burden is distributed, the burden of government is distributed among more people.
And I'll give it another minute, see if anyone else wants to chime in on this question about.
I would like to chime in if I may.
Absolutely, Susan, go right ahead.
Okay, I think first of all, I think it would be easier to find 5 people rather than 3 people. I think seeing the way Catherine was treated by 2 other people, I myself would never want to put myself in that position. And so therefore, I would feel much more comfortable with 5 people than with 3. That's it.
Oh, thank you for your comment.
Okay.
Anyone else want to chime in or put a question forward on this issue of the number of people that might run, or their personal inclination to run changing if the board were expanded? All right, why don't we move on? The next question is a little related, and I know Jeremy has mentioned this, and I know some other participants tonight are already volunteering on town boards and committees, but I guess we'll still ask the question, see if it generates any discussion. Would people be more inclined to volunteer for other town boards and committees, that is not the select board, but things like the planning board and whatnot, if the select board has 5 members? Would that change impact people's participation in the town government otherwise? Okay, doesn't sound like anyone wants to has any thoughts on that question. So this next question actually goes back a little bit to the comment that Catherine made. It gets to the process for voting for the select board if a change were to be made. In most communities that have a 5-member board, there's a 2-to-1 voting rotation once a full 5-member board is in place, so that in some years you vote for 2 seats, in other years you would only vote for 1 seat. What do people feel about voting for a different number of select board members or seats in different years? Would that impact voting in any way? Would that impact your personal voting approach? Would it impact your likelihood to run for a seat? How do people think that 2-to-1 voting might impact things, if at all? I'll give it another couple of seconds in case anyone wants to chime in on this, offer a thought or a question. All right, why don't we move on to the next and final question that we've got for discussion purposes tonight. And of course, after this, we're still more than happy to hear general comments, other questions that maybe we haven't thought about. But this last one, it's always something that people seem to be talking about when it comes to any sort of change in governmental structure. What do people think or feel about potential budgetary impacts of expanding the select board to 5 members? Does anyone want to weigh in on the issue of budget impacts?
I will weigh in on that. Being that the town is in a structural deficit, I would suggest if this was done to take the already allocated amount for selectmen stipends or salaries, whatever you call it, and allocate it out over 5 people rather than increasing the amount. We just don't have the money.
Thank you, Susan. I think Patrick has some information about the current structure for this budget line item. Patrick, do you want to share that just so that people have it for context, and if it raises any other questions, they can be addressed?
Sure. So I'm going to share the frequently asked questions. Can you see that? Okay. So question is, how much do we currently pay the select board and how is the amount determined? At our most recent town meeting, we approved $11,474 in select board stipends, broken down: chair 4,527 and 3,473 for the other 2 members. These stipends are set by the select board and approved at town meeting. So these are arbitrary amounts, and you see the next question is, would the town bear any increased cost if we move to a 5-member select board? And not necessarily, we could, but it's up to us, town meeting. So if we were to offer 2 new members the same stipends, the increase would be almost $7,000. But we tend to be on the high side. I've put together a list of towns, and the top 4 are our abutters. So Hamilton is higher, they have 5 members and they're 14,600. Manchester does not have a stipend. Topsfield has a $1 stipend per member. So they have 5 members, they allot $5. Danvers is on the high side at $18,000. Actually, Newbury is on the high side at $37,500 at $7,500 a piece. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a budget impact, but it would mean less per select board member.
Thanks, Patrick. Does anyone else have questions or comments about the potential budgetary impact in light of that information that Patrick just provided?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
Given that I'm seeing that any elected official can partake in the town's benefit package to the tune of $27,000. At that point, if I'm reading that right at the bottom, at that point, then I would do away with all stipends and say, we go like Manchester.
So
Zip.
Yep. So under Mass General Laws, Chapter 32B, Section 2 is the definition of an employee. And there is a piece in there that says any elected official who receives a stipend is considered an employee and is eligible for town benefits. So the moderator gets $50. That makes him eligible. The select board is eligible. Anyone that we give a stipend to is eligible. And there are ways around that. There are 3 ways. Per the Division of Local Services with the state, you can put it as a policy change from the select board. That's the easiest to do. It's also the easiest to reverse. The next would be a bylaw change. That's more difficult. It's a town meeting vote to change the bylaws. And then the third way is as you said, Susan, is to eliminate stipends. And that can be done voluntarily by the select board, or it could also be done on the floor of town meeting by putting a hold on the article and zeroing out stipends. That could get ugly. But those are the three ways that we could prevent elected officials from receiving the town benefits.
Okay, I think we need to do that, no matter what we do. My opinion.
It's a big
Thanks.
ticket item.
It's a huge ticket item, and I mean, it's definitely a reason to kind of curtail how many employees you bring on because of that $27,000 impact above and beyond the salary. So I think where we're in this ultimate penny pinching mode, I think we really need to look at that. And I am so grateful for you bringing this up. You can't even imagine. Thank you.
You're welcome. It surprised me. And when I talked to Rockport, they said that they eliminated stipends 3 years ago for exactly this reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Rockport
believe-
watches its pennies.
I think when I spoke with Groveland, members of the Groveland board, they had gone through the bylaw change so that
Okay.
they keep their stipends, but not be eligible for the benefits package.
Right. I mean, I would also hate to see somebody run for the select board for the wrong reason. And this is definitely a reason in a lot of people's mind to acquire the elected position. So thank you.
And just to be clear, no elected officials, except for our full-time employees, are receiving benefits.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So I'm glad that you affirmed that, and I really appreciate knowing this. Thank you.
You're welcome. Kirsten, you had your hand up?
I just wanted to clarify that point.
Any other thoughts on the budgetary impacts? I'm not surprised. Jeremy, just so you know, we can't hear you again. I'm not sure if you're trying to speak to us or give you a minute to try to figure that out. Or if you have
Sorry, there's something going on with my microphone.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
there. Yes.
So is there, on the worst case scenario assumption that 2 new people join the board and ask for benefits and receive those benefits, whatever the stipend is, at least the cost of those benefits is going to be somewhere around $50,000 or so, $55,000. Has there been a cost benefit analysis to say having 2 more people on the board is worth that $55,000 because of what they bring? Is there any data to show how expanding the board brings with it benefits that would make that worth it?
I'll start trying to respond to that. I don't think in any of the research that we've gathered from other towns that have studied this question, and some other towns have published very detailed reports that sort of used as initial roadmaps on how to do our research. But I don't recall seeing in any of those reports a true cost benefit analysis. I think in some ways, a lot of the pros that those reports discuss and that we've seen in our research gathering may be hard to quantify in that sense from a fiscal impact point of view. I certainly welcome if my fellow committee members have seen that elsewhere to chime in.
I don't think anyone's done a cost benefit on that. But one thing I think we will look at as a committee is if you were to take away the stipend, and it's not just select board, but like Roger has his huge $50 stipend for being moderator, for example. If someone no longer has a stipend and then no longer an employee, does that have other impacts in terms of, say, an employee handbook? Would they still be covered by that? So I think those are the kinds of things that I'm sure that there was a reason that the legislature wrote this in, and to delve a little deeper into that to make sure that we're covered in all areas. And that's what this committee is doing, is looking at all of these different permutations.
In my conversations with the surrounding towns and reading the reports, it is uncommon, rare for select board members to take benefits, but it is available. Without any of those three changes, it is available. So it's possible that we could be on the hook for $80,000 at current, or more than that if all of our elected officials with stipends were to take the benefits. And then most of the benefits is our healthcare.
What about pensions? Would that be covered?
Because the stipends are small, there is a pension component, but it tends to be very small because the stipends are small.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. There are several components to the benefits, but because the stipends are small, they're all based on the pay. So, but healthcare stays, that's high. That's the bulk of it.
So in light of the discussion we've had on these specific questions, I want to one more time go back and see if anyone has any other general thoughts or other questions that maybe weren't covered so far tonight that they'd like to raise to the committee at this point in time. All right, well, hearing none, I want to thank Jeremy, Susan, and Catherine for your comments and questions. Jeremy, were you putting your hand up because you have another question? Or
No, it's just acknowledgement. Thanks.
So thank you for your participation tonight. And with that, I will go ahead and make a motion to close the public forum part of tonight's meeting.
Second.
Roll call vote. Roger?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Deirdre?
Yes.
Kirsten?
Yes.
Harriet? Thumbs up, Harriet. You're muted.
Aye.
Perfect. And Pat Waddell, aye as well. All right, the public forum portion of the meeting is closed. I truly appreciate all input and attendance. Fantastic. Again, please take the survey and please go through our documents. Go through the website. We've tried to keep the directories so all the information is out there. Everyone we've talked to, all the interviews we've done are there. Oh, Dave, I'm sorry. I see the eye. I didn't have you in my initial list. I'm sorry. So Dave Anderson is an aye as well for closing the public forum.
I want to be on the record. I want to
Yep.
be on the record for that one, Patrick.
So
Underscore that twice. Dave Anderson is an aye.
So the next agenda item is meeting frequency and next agenda. So next agenda or our next meeting is November 4th. Already in the calendar with the next the public survey will close on October 31st. So please take the survey, encourage your friends to take the survey. Our next meeting is November 4th. I've been thinking about this, and we talked about having a straw poll, and I'd like to hear what people think about having 2 straw polls. One is the simple question of 3 or 5, and get the sense of the committee. And then, regardless of your vote on the first one, is should this go to town meeting? I think that's 2 separate issues. Personally, 3 or 5, and then should it proceed to town meeting? And then again, just straw polls. Just wanted people's thoughts on that. Mike?
Patrick, I'm not sure I follow you. This matter, should the committee recommend 5, must go to town meeting.
No.
Why not? How do you avoid town meeting?
It's up to the select board.
Oh, I see. If they chose to go to 5, they could themselves order it.
They could, or we could say, we recommend 5, and the select board chooses not to send it to the warrant.
Yeah, might be a smarter move on the part of the selectmen to let it go to the town.
Yeah.
But that's just an opinion.
I guess Patrick are you trying to get a sense of if there are any committee who are inclined to vote no on the recommendation, but nevertheless think that the issue should go before the town? Is that what you're trying to get a sense of?
Exactly.
I mean, I guess there's no harm in doing 2 questions on the straw poll.
No. And again, non-binding, it's just, this is our initial sense of where we stand. And then we get into deliberations. Is there anything else that people would like to see on the next agenda?
So we have, just remind me, we've got the straw polls, we've got discussion of tonight's forum, and then commencement of deliberation, right?
Yes.
Probably some planning for who's going to write the report or what the report's going to include. Or do we do that later?
I agree with that, Kirsten, and I think that's the whole point of the straw vote, is to see if there's any sides, for lack of a term, of the issue, the committee itself, because if there are, then that'll kind of drive whether a minority opinion needs to be prepared or not, and all that good stuff.
And I think we also need to go over the results of the public survey.
Yes. Yeah, that's why we pushed the meeting off. Thank you. That's why we pushed the meeting off until after the survey is closed.
Patrick?
Yes, sir.
In the interest of trying to help the report writing along, as you know, I did a structural skeleton without, value attached. And I've revised it to sort of sand down some of the edges and make it more bland, in terms of not judgmental, etc. And I've submitted that, and you've put it into the reserves, the archives, if you will. And we may be able to use that or something like it, because as soon as we get some deliberations going, the flesh on the bones will start to attach. And if it's useful, use it. If we're going to look at a whole different approach, I guess we'll decide that in coming deliberations.
Yes, and thank you for sending that. I did put that into our documents and move the prior one to the prior versions folder. So that is out there for us all to look at. And we should all probably just take a look at that prior to November 4th.
Yeah, so the committee can find out whether it has appeal as a structure, not the answers. Those are going to be coming from our deliberation, but just as here's the background, here's the charge, here's some of the things we're trying to deal with. Here's pros and cons. I mean, there's nothing, it's not rocket science. We just have to figure out how to communicate our collective views to the residents of Wenham.
And we do want to be sure to have a majority and minority report to present as well. So, and we encourage, if we come to two sides, both sides submit a report and take it from there. Anything else we should add to the agenda? Deirdre?
Just by way of background documents, also before the next meeting, also in the Google Drive is the full list of the pros and cons that I put together that was pulled from all of the research results. So that what I showed tonight was sort of the partial list, but the complete list is there. So if people could also take a look at that before we start deliberations on the 4th.
Excellent. Thank you, Deirdre. And I've also put together a list of pros and cons for both 3 and 5, also out in the shared drive. And if people would like to come up with their own, that would be great as well. Kirsten?
I'm just looking for Mike's document and I'm not sure what it's called or where it is exactly.
Okay.
Get a little direction, that'd be great.
Yeah. So 3 to 5 research.
Okay.
It's in drafts.
Oh, it's in drafts. Okay, great.
TGSE draft report 10/15/21.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you.
Sure. And then Deirdre's the complete list of pros and cons from the surveys is complete list of pros and cons.
Great.
And mine is PJW_pro_con_draft_this_that. Anything else we need? Next meeting should be fun. Anything else people would like to discuss? Well, again, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank the public, Catherine Tinsley. Thank you very much. I appreciated and enjoyed our conversations, and I look forward to our November 4th meeting. And I will also put the public survey results out there as soon as the survey is closed after 10/31.
Awesome.
Anyone willing to make a motion?
So moved.
Second to adjourn?
Second.
Harriet?
Yes.
Kirsten?
Yes.
Deirdre?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Dave, this time?
Yeah. Yes.
Pat Waddell is yes. Paul, I didn't say hello. It's very good to see you. But thank you all.
Hey, you had a glass of wine there all at the ready, Paul.
Yeah. It's white.
Cheers.
All right. Good night, folks. Ryan, thank you very much. Paul,
Neil,
thank you very
thanks for
much.
coming.
Neil,
Thanks.
thank you for coming. Absolutely.
Thank you,
Very much
Patrick.
for your input.